There are days when you reach the evening and feel exhausted, even though nothing really happened. You did not run a marathon. You did not solve complex problems. You did not face any visible crisis. From the outside, it looks like you barely did anything. And yet, your body feels heavy. Your mind feels foggy. Even simple tasks feel overwhelming. This creates a quiet confusion. How can I be this tired if I did nothing? The truth is uncomfortable and deeply revealing. You were not resting. You were thinking. The invisible activity of the mind. Physical stillness does not equal mental rest. You can lie on a couch, scroll your phone, stare out the window, and still be running a full marathon inside your head. The brain does not switch off simply because the body stops moving. Instead, it fills the silence, and often it fills it with noise. The constant inner dialogue. For many people, silence does not feel silent. It feels crowded. A voice begins narrating. Did I say something wrong earlier? What did they mean by that message? Why did I react like that? I should have handled it differently. Tomorrow, I need to fix this. What if I fail? The inner dialogue never fully stops. It comments, it evaluates, it predicts, it criticizes. It replays conversations, it rehearses future ones. Even when you appear inactive, your mind is engaged in non-stop commentary, and commentary consumes energy. Background anxiety, the noise beneath the noise. Not all mental activity is loud. Some of it hums beneath awareness, a low-grade tension, a subtle sense that something is wrong, an undefined unease. Nothing is happening, yet your nervous system remains alert. This is background anxiety. It does not demand attention, but it quietly drains it. Like an app running in the background of your phone, it consumes battery life without you realizing it. Your muscles stay slightly tense. Your breathing stays shallow. Your nervous system never fully powers down. And by the end of the day, you feel depleted, without knowing why. Living in the future, mental simulation mode. The brain is designed to predict. It constantly scans for what might happen next. What if I lose my job? What if this plan fails? What if they stop liking me? What if I cannot handle what is coming? You imagine conversations that have not happened. You rehearse problems that do not yet exist. You prepare for threats that may never arrive. This mental time travel feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like preparation. But to the nervous system, imagined threats activate real stress responses. Your body reacts to a future that exists only in thought. And stress, even imagined stress, consumes energy. If the future does not occupy the mind, the past will. Moments replay. That awkward silence. That mistake. That missed opportunity. That thing you wish you had said. The brain revisits old scenes, searching for better outcomes. But the past cannot be edited. Still, the mind returns to it again and again, hoping for resolution. Each replay consumes emotional energy. Each regret tightens the chest. Each memory reactivates feelings your body must process all over again. You are not resting. You are reliving. Hidden cognitive labor. Even when you believe you are doing nothing, the brain may be. Processing unresolved emotions, making sense of social interactions, scanning for threats, evaluating self-worth. comparing your life to others, maintaining vigilance in uncertain environments. This is invisible labor. It has no visible output, no measurable result, no sense of completion, which makes it uniquely exhausting. Why thinking is so draining. The brain consumes a significant portion of the body's energy. Sustained mental activity, especially emotional processing and threat detection, requires enormous neural resources. And unlike physical effort, mental effort rarely signals completion. There is no finish line for overthinking, no cool-down period for anxiety, no natural stopping point for rumination. So the system keeps running, and running, and running, until exhaustion feels inevitable. You are not tired from doing nothing. You are tired from carrying invisible weight, from conversations that never stop, from tension that never fully releases, from futures rehearsed and pasts replayed, from a mind that never truly rests. People do not become exhausted only from action. They become exhausted from thought. And in a world where silence is rare and uncertainty is constant, the mind rarely stops working, even when you do. There is a special kind of fatigue that does not come from work, movement, or effort. It comes from restraint, from holding back what you feel, from swallowing what you want to say, from maintaining composure when something inside you is tightening. From the outside, you look calm, polite, controlled, easy to be around. Inside, pressure is building, and pressure requires energy to contain. The cost of holding yourself back. Many people learn early that certain emotions are unacceptable. Do not be angry. Do not be difficult. Do not make things uncomfortable. Do not cause problems. Be nice. Be agreeable. Be easy. So irritation gets softened into silence. Disappointment becomes a forced smile. Hurt transforms into, "It's fine." Anger dissolves into compliance. But emotions do not disappear when they are suppressed. They remain active beneath the surface, and keeping them contained is work. Suppressed irritation, the micro-tension of daily life. Someone interrupts you. A message goes unanswered. A boundary is crossed. You are treated with subtle disrespect. You feel irritation rise. But instead of expressing it, you push it down. It's not worth it. I don't want conflict. I'll just let it go. Outwardly, peace is preserved. Internally, tension remains. Each moment of swallowed irritation creates a tiny contraction in the nervous system. One contraction is small. Dozens accumulate. Hundreds create chronic tension. By the end of the day, your body feels tight and your mind feels drained. Not because of what happened, but because of what you held in. Unprocessed hurt. The weight of unspoken pain. Sometimes the exhaustion is quieter. You were hurt, disappointed, overlooked, dismissed. But you told yourself it did not matter. You minimized the moment. You rationalized their behavior. You convinced yourself you were overreacting. Yet the emotional experience never completed its cycle. Unfelt emotions do not dissolve. They linger in the nervous system as unresolved tension. Like unfinished sentences, they remain open loops in the mind. And each open loop consumes energy. Anger is not a flaw in human design. It is energy meant to signal that something is wrong, that a boundary has been crossed, that a need has been ignored, that injustice has occurred. But many people learn to fear their anger, so instead of expressing it safely and constructively, they bury it. And buried anger does not disappear. It turns inward. It becomes muscle tension, headaches, jaw clenching, chronic fatigue, irritability without a clear cause. Suppressing anger is like holding down a spring with constant pressure. The effort never stops. And effort without release leads to exhaustion. The habit of being easy. One of the most draining patterns is the habit of being convenient for others. You say yes when you want to say no. You accommodate when you need space. You listen when you are emotionally depleted. You adapt to keep the peace. Being agreeable feels safer than being honest. But self-abandonment requires continuous emotional regulation, monitoring others' moods, adjusting your reactions, suppressing authentic responses, avoiding disapproval. This creates a state of constant vigilance. You are not just present, you are managing the emotional climate of the room. And emotional management is labor, invisible but exhausting. Why suppressed emotions drain energy? Emotions are physiological processes. When an emotion arises, the body prepares for expression. Heart rate changes, muscles activate, hormones release, breathing shifts. If the emotion is expressed and processed, the system returns to balance. But when expression is blocked, the body remains in a state of activation. The emotional cycle never completes. Your nervous system stays engaged, and sustained activation consumes energy. This is why you can feel exhausted after a day with no visible conflict, because inside, you fought many silent battles. The hidden burden you carry. You may not have argued, you may not have raised your voice, you may not have shown anger, hurt, or frustration. But you held them, you contained them, managed them, compressed them into silence. And containment is effort. Emotions do not stop requiring energy simply because they are hidden. They continue to live in the body. They continue to ask for resolution. They continue to draw from your reserves. You are not weak for feeling drained. You are not tired because you are fragile. You are tired because you have been strong for too long. Strong enough to hold irritation. Strong enough to carry hurt. Strong enough to bury anger. Strong enough to remain easy in difficult moments. But strength without release becomes weight. And emotional weight, even when invisible, is still heavy. Sometimes the exhaustion is not mental, not emotional, not even physical in the usual sense. It is nervous system fatigue. You sleep, but wake up tired. You rest, but never feel restored. You stop working, yet your body remains tense. It feels as if recovery never fully happens. Because recovery requires safety, and your nervous system does not feel safe. The body is always listening. Long before conscious thought begins, the nervous system is scanning the environment. It asks one question repeatedly: am I safe right now? If the answer is yes, the body relaxes, breathing deepens, muscles soften, digestion improves, energy restores. If the answer is no, even subtly, The body prepares for protection. This preparation is automatic. It does not require real danger, only the perception of threat. Living in subtle alertness. Modern stress rarely looks like immediate danger. Instead, it appears as uncertainty about the future, financial pressure, relationship instability, constant news exposure, social tension, unpredictable environments. None of these require running or fighting, but to the nervous system, unpredictability signals potential danger, so it stays alert. Not panicked, not overwhelmed, just slightly braced, all the time. Constant vigilance without real threat. When the nervous system cannot predict what is coming next, it maintains a low-level defensive posture. Your shoulders stay slightly raised, your jaw stays subtly tight, your breathing remains shallow, your muscles never fully release. You may not notice this tension consciously, but your body is holding it, and holding requires energy. Imagine clenching your fist all day without realizing it. By evening, fatigue would be inevitable. Now imagine your entire nervous system doing something similar. Fight or flight without escape. The fight or flight response is designed for short bursts of survival. You encounter danger, your heart rate increases, adrenaline releases, your body mobilizes. You escape, you recover. But modern stress often has no clear endpoint. Emails do not end. Bills do not disappear. Uncertainty does not resolve overnight. Social pressures do not switch off. So the stress response activates, but never completes. The body prepares for action that never happens. Energy mobilizes but is not discharged. This creates internal overload. Some people lie down to rest and notice something unsettling. Their body does not soften. Instead, the mind keeps scanning. The muscles stay tense. The chest feels tight. Sleep feels shallow. This is not a failure to relax. It is a nervous system that does not feel safe enough to power down. Safety is not a logical decision. It is a physiological state. And when the body has learned to expect unpredictability, it resists letting go. Because letting go feels risky. When rest does not restore. True recovery occurs only when the nervous system enters a parasympathetic state, the mode of repair, digestion, and restoration. But if the body remains in low-grade activation, even during rest, sleep becomes lighter, muscle repair decreases, hormonal balance is disrupted, mental clarity declines, energy reserves fail to replenish. This is why weekends do not always restore energy, why vacations sometimes feel insufficient, why doing nothing still leaves you tired. Rest without safety is not restoration. The body remembers what the mind minimizes. You may tell yourself, everything is fine, nothing is wrong, I should not feel stressed. But the nervous system does not respond to words. It responds to experience. If your environment has felt unpredictable, if stress has been continuous, if safety has been inconsistent, your nervous system adapts by staying prepared. Prepared for what might happen next, even when nothing is happening now. The exhaustion of never powering down. Imagine a machine designed to alternate between activity and recovery. Now imagine it never fully switches off. It does not break immediately, but efficiency declines. Overheating increases. Performance weakens. Energy drains faster than it replenishes. The human nervous system functions similarly. Without true relaxation, restoration cannot occur. Without restoration, fatigue accumulates. You are not failing to rest. If you feel tired even after resting, it does not mean you are resting wrong. It may mean your nervous system has not received the signal of safety it needs to release tension. Your body is not resisting relaxation. It is protecting you. Because, from its perspective, staying alert has been necessary, and systems designed for survival do not power down easily, even when you finally have the chance to rest. Why exhaustion persists. You are not only tired from activity, you are tired from vigilance, from muscles that never fully soften, from breathing that never fully deepens, from a nervous system waiting for impact that never comes. And when the body lives in readiness for too long, even stillness becomes exhausting. Because recovery begins with safety, and safety is not the absence of danger, it is the presence of felt security in the body. There was a time when the human brain processed only what existed within the visible horizon. The sounds of the immediate environment, the faces of familiar people, the concerns of the local community, the rhythm of day and night. Today, before you even get out of bed, your mind may encounter global crises, economic uncertainty, political conflict, social comparison, tragedies across continents, opinions from thousands of strangers, all within minutes of opening your phone. And the brain absorbs it all, the endless stream of content. Social media never ends. There is always another video, another post, another opinion, another life to compare yours to. Your brain is forced to process success stories, personal struggles, filtered happiness, outrage cycles, conflicting viewpoints, advertisements engineered to capture attention. Each piece may seem insignificant alone, but together they create cognitive saturation. The mind does not experience this as neutral input. It experiences it as continuous stimulation. Comparison fatigue. While scrolling, the brain performs rapid, automatic comparisons. They are more successful. They travel more. They look happier. They achieved more by my age. I am behind. Even when you consciously reject comparison, your brain registers perceived social hierarchies. This activates stress responses related to status and belonging, ancient survival mechanisms. Because in earlier human history, belonging to the group meant survival. Today, social comparison happens hundreds of times per hour, and each comparison consumes emotional energy. The psychological weight of news exposure. Humans evolved to respond to immediate threats within their environment. But modern news delivers danger from everywhere at once. Wars, natural disasters, economic collapse, violence, crisis after crisis. Your nervous system reacts as if these threats are close and immediate. Yet there is no action you can take. This creates a state of helpless vigilance. The body mobilizes stress responses without resolution. The result is emotional exhaustion. not because you experience the events directly, but because your nervous system processed them as real threats. Every notification interrupts the brain's natural rhythm. A sound, a vibration, a pop-up, a red badge icon. Each alert triggers a micro-orienting response. What is it? Is it important? Do I need to respond? Even when the message is trivial, the brain must shift attention, evaluate relevance, and reorient focus. This constant switching fragments mental continuity. Over time, attention becomes fractured into smaller and smaller segments. And fragmented attention requires more energy to sustain. The illusion that you must know everything. There is a subtle pressure in modern life. Stay informed, stay updated, stay relevant. Do not fall behind. Know what is happening. But the human brain did not evolve to hold awareness of global events, cultural trends, technological change, and social dynamics simultaneously. The expectation to keep up creates chronic cognitive strain, because no matter how much you consume, there is always more, and never enough is an exhausting state. Cognitive overload. Too much input, no processing time. Information alone is not the problem. The problem is volume without integration. Your brain receives far more input than it has time to process. Images, headlines, statistics, opinions, conflicts, advertising messages, emotional stimuli. Without pauses for reflection, the nervous system remains in a state of continuous intake, like breathing in without fully exhaling. Over time, this creates mental congestion, and congestion leads to fatigue. The brain was not built for infinite input. For most of human history, information arrived slowly. Now it arrives endlessly. The brain, designed for depth and focus, is forced into constant scanning. Instead of processing meaning, it skims. Instead of integrating, it jumps. Instead of resting, it refreshes. This mode of operation is efficient for machines. It is exhausting for humans. Why you feel tired after just scrolling. Scrolling feels passive, but neurologically it is intensive. You are processing images, interpreting language, evaluating social signals, filtering relevance, regulating emotional responses, making micro-decisions, hundreds of times within minutes. This is not rest. It is rapid cognitive labor. When the mind never goes quiet. Silence used to be the natural background of life. Now, silence feels unusual. Moments of waiting are filled with checking. Moments of boredom are filled with scrolling. Moments of stillness are filled with input. Without pauses, the brain cannot reset. Without reset, fatigue accumulates. Modern exhaustion is not a personal failure. If you feel mentally drained despite doing nothing, it may not be laziness or lack of discipline. It may be overload. Overload from information, from stimulation, from comparison, from alerts demanding attention, from the pressure to stay constantly informed. The human brain is powerful, but it is not designed for infinite input. And when it is forced to process more than it can integrate, fatigue is not a flaw. It is a signal that the system has exceeded its natural limits. There is a quiet kind of exhaustion that does not come from what you have done, but from what you have not decided. You wake up already carrying it. You move through the day aware of it. You try to relax, but something unfinished lingers in the background. It is not loud. It does not demand immediate action, yet it never fully releases its grip. Because unresolved decisions do not disappear. They remain open loops in the mind, and open loops consume energy. The invisible weight of postponement. I'll deal with it later. I'll decide when I have more clarity. Now isn't the right time. I just need to think about it more. These phrases feel relieving in the moment. Postponement creates temporary comfort. But what is delayed is not dismissed. It is stored. Your mind keeps track of unfinished matters, the email you have not answered, the conversation you have been avoiding, the task you keep moving to tomorrow, the decision you know you need to make. Each one remains active in the background, not loud enough to act on, not quiet enough to ignore. The brain hates open loops. The human brain seeks closure. When something is unfinished, it remains cognitively active. Psychologists refer to this as the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished tasks occupy mental space until completion. This is why you remember what is incomplete more vividly than what is finished. Every unresolved item creates a subtle mental tension. Don't forget, this still needs attention. You haven't resolved this yet. One open loop is manageable. Dozens create cognitive congestion. Micro decisions that drain your energy. Exhaustion does not always come from major life choices. It often comes from micro decisions repeatedly postponed. Should I reply now or later? Should I continue this project or stop? Should I stay or leave? Should I confront this issue or ignore it? Should I change direction or wait? Each unresolved question demands periodic review. Your mind revisits it again and again, searching for clarity. Even without conscious awareness, energy is spent holding these possibilities open. Unfinished tasks and mental background processing. You may not actively think about unfinished tasks, yet they continue running in the background. I still need to finish that. I should get to it soon. Why haven't I done it yet? This background processing fragments attention. Part of your mental bandwidth is always reserved for what remains undone, which means less energy is available for the present moment. Delaying decisions can feel safe. Deciding requires commitment. Commitment eliminates alternatives. Alternatives feel like security, so we remain in the space of possibility. Not choosing feels like avoiding loss, but indecision is not neutral. It is a prolonged state of tension. Your nervous system remains suspended between options. Without resolution, the body cannot relax into direction. Internal doubt, the energy drain of uncertainty. Sometimes the decision is not external, it is internal. Am I on the right path? Am I wasting time? What if I regret this later? What if I choose wrong? Doubt creates mental friction. Each revisit to the same uncertainty consumes emotional and cognitive energy, because the brain seeks certainty, and uncertainty demands ongoing monitoring. Why unresolved decisions feel heavy? Decisions create closure. Closure frees mental space. Without closure, the mind must track possibilities, reevaluate options, simulate outcomes, reassess risks. This process repeats until resolution, which means indecision is not a pause. It is ongoing cognitive activity. Decision fatigue. Without deciding. You can feel decision fatigue even when you have not made decisions, because evaluating options requires mental effort. Weighing possibilities requires cognitive resources. Revisiting unresolved choices drains emotional energy. You are not tired from choosing. You are tired from continuously reconsidering. The subtle stress of avoidance. Avoidance reduces discomfort in the moment, but the nervous system does not interpret avoidance as resolution. Instead, it maintains low-level alertness. This is still unresolved. This still requires attention. This is not finished. Unfinished matters create psychological tension similar to unfinished conversations. Something remains open, and open tension consumes energy. When everything feels heavy. If you feel tired without clear cause, consider what remains undecided. Conversations you are avoiding, tasks you keep postponing, choices you delay confronting, directions you hesitate to commit to. It is not the size of these decisions that drains you, it is their persistence. Closure restores energy. Energy is not only restored through rest, it is restored through resolution, through finishing, through deciding, through completing emotional and cognitive loops. Each closed loop frees attention. Each decision releases tension. Each completion restores mental space. You are not lazy. You are carrying unfinished weight. You are not tired because you lack motivation. You are tired because your mind is holding too many open loops, too many postponed choices, too many unresolved questions, too many decisions waiting in the background. And every unresolved matter continues to ask for energy until it is faced, until it is closed, until the mind is finally allowed to rest. There is a form of fatigue that sleep does not cure, a heaviness that does not leave after a weekend, a tiredness that lingers even when responsibilities are temporarily paused. It is not caused by overwork alone. It is not caused by stress alone. It is caused by internal conflict, by the quiet friction between the life you live and the life you feel drawn toward. When your energy has nowhere to flow. Human beings are not exhausted only by effort. They are exhausted by effort without meaning. You can work long hours towards something that feels purposeful and still feel alive. But even moderate effort feels draining when it lacks meaning. Because energy requires direction. When direction feels empty, energy collapses inward. Work without meaning. You complete tasks, you meet deadlines, you fulfill responsibilities. From the outside, everything looks stable. Inside, a quiet question repeats. What is the point of this? When work feels disconnected from personal values, the nervous system experiences it as prolonged exertion without reward. Motivation weakens, engagement declines, fatigue increases. Not because the work is difficult, but because it feels meaningless. Meaning fuels endurance. Without it, even simple tasks feel heavy. Relationships maintained out of obligation. Some relationships continue not from connection, but from duty. You stay because leaving would hurt someone. because it is expected, because it would be complicated, because you feel responsible for their comfort. Outward harmony is preserved, but emotional authenticity disappears. When your words do not match your truth, the nervous system must maintain constant regulation, filtering reactions, suppressing honesty, monitoring emotional responses, maintaining peace at personal cost. This creates ongoing emotional tension. Connection requires authenticity. Without authenticity, interaction becomes performance, and performance is exhausting. Living according to others' expectations. From an early age, most people learn what is acceptable, what is impressive, what is safe, what earns approval, what earns belonging. So choices are shaped by expectation. What will make my family proud? What society considers successful? What others will understand? What will avoid criticism? Over time, external expectations can replace internal guidance. You achieve milestones. You meet standards. You do what is expected. Yet an unnamed emptiness remains, because achievement without alignment does not create fulfillment. It creates compliance. Desire is directional energy. It pulls you toward what feels alive. But many desires are silenced. Creative impulses dismissed as impractical dreams postponed for stability. Curiosity replaced with obligation. Passions minimized for approval. The desires do not vanish. They remain beneath awareness, pressing gently against the boundaries of daily life. Ignoring them requires continuous psychological effort, because part of you keeps whispering, "There is more. This is not all." Something inside you is waiting. Suppressing that voice requires energy. Listening to it requires courage. Avoiding it requires exhaustion. Internal conflict, when the self is divided. Exhaustion deepens when two inner forces pull in opposite directions. One seeks safety. One seeks authenticity. One seeks approval. One seeks truth. One seeks stability. One seeks aliveness. When these forces remain unresolved, the nervous system stays in tension. Every decision becomes heavier. Every step forward feels uncertain. Every day requires negotiation between competing inner needs. This is psychological friction, and friction consumes energy. Why misalignment drains more than hard work? Physical work tires the body. Internal conflict tires the psyche. When your actions contradict your inner values, the brain must constantly regulate discomfort, rationalizing choices, minimizing dissatisfaction, suppressing inner signals, maintaining external roles. This ongoing regulation requires more energy than honest alignment, because truth simplifies, conflict complicates. The quiet signs of inner misalignment. This form of exhaustion rarely announces itself loudly. Instead, it appears as chronic fatigue despite adequate rest, loss of motivation without clear cause, emotional numbness, irritability without explanation, a persistent sense of heaviness. Not dramatic suffering, but a slow draining of vitality. You are not weak for feeling drained. If you feel tired in a life that appears stable, if responsibilities are met but energy is gone, If nothing is visibly wrong, but something feels deeply off, it may not be burnout. It may be misalignment. Living against your inner truth requires continuous self-suppression, and self-suppression is labor. The weight of becoming who you are not. You may be functioning, responsible, reliable, dependable, but functioning is not the same as living. When life is shaped entirely by obligation, expectation, and fear of disruption, the self gradually withdraws. And when the self withdraws, vitality follows. Because aliveness requires authenticity. Why this exhaustion runs so deep? You are not only tired from what you do, you are tired from who you are not allowed to be. From desires left unspoken, from paths not taken, from truths not lived, from a life shaped more by expectation than by inner direction. And this kind of misalignment exhausts more deeply than physical labor ever could. Because the body can recover from effort, but the soul grows tired from living divided against itself. There is a voice many people live with every day. It speaks quietly. It sounds reasonable. Sometimes it even sounds helpful. But its impact is heavy. It points out flaws, questions decisions, highlights mistakes, warns against failure, reminds you that you could have done better. And over time, it drains more energy than any external demand. Because you are not only facing the world, you are facing yourself. The feeling of never being enough. No matter what you accomplish, satisfaction fades quickly. You finish a task and notice what could have been better. You reach a goal and focus on what is still missing. You receive praise and question whether you truly deserve it. The inner critic moves the finish line, always further, always higher, always out of reach. This creates a persistent sense of insufficiency, not because you lack achievement, but because nothing feels complete. And chasing completion without a rival is exhausting. Fear of mistakes, living under internal surveillance. Mistakes are part of being human, but under self-criticism, mistakes feel like proof of inadequacy. So the mind becomes hyper-vigilant. Do not say the wrong thing. Do not choose incorrectly. Do not look foolish. Do not fail. This constant monitoring creates internal pressure. Every decision feels heavier. Every action feels exposed. Every risk feels dangerous. Instead of moving freely, you move cautiously. And caution requires sustained mental effort. Comparison, the endless measurement. The brain instinctively compares, but when self-worth is tied to comparison, every encounter becomes evaluation. They are more successful. They are more confident. They are further ahead. They seem to have it figured out. Comparison rarely accounts for context, timing, resources, or unseen struggles. Yet the emotional impact is real. Each comparison reinforces perceived inadequacy, and feeling inadequate is psychologically draining. Because the nervous system interprets social inferiority as a threat to belonging. Perfectionism is often mistaken for high standards. But perfectionism is not about excellence. It is about fear. Fear of criticism. Fear of rejection. Fear of being exposed as insufficient. So tasks expand beyond necessity. You over-edit, overthink, over-prepare, delay completion, because finishing means exposure, and exposure feels dangerous. Perfectionism transforms simple tasks into prolonged battles, and battles consume energy. Self-criticism divides the self into two roles, the one who acts and the one who judges. Every action is observed, every choice is evaluated, every outcome is reviewed. You are not simply living, you are performing under internal inspection. This creates constant tension, because being watched, even by yourself, prevents relaxation. Why self-criticism feels motivating but exhausts you. Many people believe self-criticism drives improvement, and in small doses, self-reflection can be useful. But chronic self-criticism does not motivate. It activates threat responses. The brain shifts from creativity to protection, from exploration to avoidance, from growth to risk minimization. Instead of expanding capacity, it narrows it. And sustained threat states consume enormous energy. The emotional weight of harsh self-talk. Notice the tone of your inner voice. You should have known better. Why did you say that? That was embarrassing. You always mess things up. You are behind. If another person spoke to you this way constantly, it would feel oppressive. When the voice comes from within, the impact is deeper, because there is no escape. The nervous system remains under continuous emotional pressure, and pressure depletes energy. Living in fear of your own judgment. When the inner critic dominates, even rest is not restful. You replay conversations, re-evaluate decisions, anticipate criticism, rehearse self-defense. Instead of recovering, your mind continues reviewing performance. This prevents emotional recovery, because recovery requires psychological safety, and self-judgment removes safety. Being against yourself is exhausting. There is no heavier state than living in opposition to yourself. When your own mind becomes an adversary, effort increases, confidence declines, risk tolerance shrinks, energy drains. You are not only navigating life, you are defending yourself from your own evaluation. Why this exhaustion runs so deep? You can recover from physical effort. You can recover from external pressure. But when the pressure comes from within, the system never powers down, because the source travels with you, into work, into relationships, into rest, into sleep. You were never meant to fight yourself. If you feel constantly tired, depleted, or mentally heavy, consider how much energy is spent on self-opposition, on proving worth, on avoiding mistakes, on measuring yourself against others, on chasing impossible perfection. Being at war with yourself is one of the most energy-consuming states a human being can inhabit, because healing requires safety, and safety begins the moment you are no longer your own adversary. There are evenings when you stop working, but do not feel rested. You sit down, you scroll, you watch videos, you lie in bed with your phone inches from your face. Hours pass. Yet, when you finally put the device down, your mind feels crowded and your body still tense. You were inactive, but you were not restored. Because rest is not the absence of activity. Rest is the presence of recovery. The difference between stopping and resting. Stopping means ceasing effort. Resting means restoring energy. These are not the same. You can stop working while remaining mentally stimulated. You can lie down while your nervous system stays activated. You can relax while your brain continues processing input. True rest occurs when stimulation decreases and the nervous system shifts into repair mode. Without this shift, recovery does not occur. Scrolling instead of restoring. Reaching for the phone feels effortless. It requires no decision, no engagement, no commitment. It fills silence instantly. But scrolling does not calm the nervous system. It floods it. New images, new information, new emotional stimuli, new comparisons, new micro-decisions. Each swipe feeds the brain more input to process. The mind remains active, and active minds do not restore energy. Content consumption versus mental quiet. Watching videos or consuming content can feel relaxing because it distracts you from effort. But distraction is not restoration. While watching, the brain is processing visual data, interpreting language, tracking narratives, predicting outcomes, regulating emotional reactions. Even passive viewing requires cognitive processing. This is stimulation, not recovery. True restoration requires moments when the brain is not required to interpret, evaluate, or respond. Moments of quiet. The missing pause. Modern life has removed natural pauses. Waiting in line once meant stillness. Commuting once meant observation. Moments between tasks once allowed mental reset. Now, every pause is filled. Waiting becomes scrolling. Silence becomes content. Stillness becomes stimulation. Without pauses, the nervous system never completes cycles of activation and recovery. It remains in continuous intake mode, and continuous intake leads to fatigue. For many people, stillness feels unfamiliar. When external input stops, internal noise becomes noticeable. Unfinished thoughts surface. Emotions become visible. Anxiety emerges. Restlessness appears. So stimulation returns quickly, not because content is needed, but because silence reveals what has been avoided. Yet restoration lives on the other side of stillness. The inability to be present. When the mind is conditioned to constant stimulation, presence becomes difficult. Moments feel incomplete without input. Stillness feels empty. Silence feels unnatural. Attention seeks the next stimulus. But presence is where recovery happens. In slow breathing. In noticing surroundings. In feeling the body soften. In allowing the nervous system to power down. Without presence, the body remains subtly activated, and activation prevents restoration. Why doing nothing sometimes feels restless. If you try to rest and feel agitated, it does not mean you are bad at relaxing. It may mean your nervous system is unused to stillness. Like a room that has been noisy for years, silence can feel unfamiliar at first. But the body requires quiet to repair. Muscles release tension in stillness. Hormones rebalance in calm states. The brain reorganizes and integrates during downtime. Without these processes, fatigue accumulates. Rest is not laziness. True rest is not avoidance. It is not indulgence. It is not wasted time. It is biological maintenance. Just as muscles grow during recovery, mental clarity returns during rest. Without restoration, performance declines. Yet modern culture often values constant productivity over recovery. So people remain active even during rest and wonder why exhaustion persists. What real rest feels like. Real rest is slower. Breathing deepens. Muscles soften. Thoughts slow. Attention widens. Time feels less urgent. It may include quiet walking, sitting without input, gentle movement, being in nature, intentional stillness, unstructured time. Rest is not about emptiness, it is about restoration. You are not failing to rest. If you feel tired despite taking time off, it may not be a lack of rest. It may be a lack of restoration. Because scrolling is stimulation, content is input, noise is activation, and the nervous system restores only when it senses safety, quiet, and reduced demand. Why exhaustion persists? You are not only tired from effort, you are tired from never fully powering down, from filling silence with stimulation, from replacing stillness with input, from stopping activity without allowing recovery. Rest is not simply doing less. Rest is allowing the body and mind to repair. And repair begins the moment stimulation fades, the nervous system softens, and you allow yourself to truly be still. Sometimes exhaustion does not come from what is happening now, but from what might happen next. Nothing is visibly wrong in this moment. You are safe. You are functioning. The day appears ordinary. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet tension persists, a sense of waiting, of bracing, of preparing for impact that has not arrived. This is the fatigue of uncertainty. The brain is built to seek safety. At its core, the human nervous system is not designed for happiness. It is designed for survival. Its primary question is not, "Am I fulfilled?" It is, "Am I safe?" When the environment feels predictable, the nervous system relaxes. When the future feels uncertain, the system prepares. Preparation requires energy, even when nothing is happening. Financial anxiety, survival in modern form. For most of human history, survival meant securing food and shelter. Today, survival is often experienced through financial stability. Even subtle financial pressure can activate threat responses. What if I lose income? What if expenses rise? What if I cannot handle an emergency? What if everything becomes unstable? These questions may not be constant, conscious thoughts, but they remain active beneath awareness. The nervous system interprets financial insecurity as a threat to survival, and perceived threats activate stress physiology, even in the absence of immediate danger. A world that feels unpredictable. In previous generations, life often followed clearer patterns. Today, change is rapid and continuous. Economic shifts, technological disruption, global conflicts, environmental concerns, social transformation. The future can feel less predictable than ever before. The nervous system does not require immediate danger to activate. Unpredictability alone can signal risk. When outcomes feel uncertain, the body prepares for instability, and prolonged preparation leads to fatigue. Fear of change, the stress of the unknown. Even positive change creates stress, new opportunities, relocation, career shifts, personal transformation. Change introduces unknown variables, and the brain prefers predictability. Predictability equals safety. Uncertainty requires constant recalibration. Should I adapt? Should I prepare? What if this goes wrong? Living in transition requires continuous adjustment. Adjustment consumes energy. Humans tolerate difficulty better than helplessness. When challenges arise but action is possible, the nervous system mobilizes with purpose. But when outcomes feel beyond influence, stress increases. Global events, economic forces, institutional decisions, societal changes. These forces affect daily life while remaining outside personal control. This creates a psychological paradox. The brain senses potential threat, but no direct action resolves it. So the nervous system remains alert without release, and alertness without resolution is exhausting. Subconscious monitoring, always scanning ahead. Even when you are focused on daily tasks, part of the mind continues scanning. What if things change suddenly? What if stability disappears? Am I prepared if something goes wrong? This monitoring happens quietly. You may not notice it, but the nervous system remains engaged in future-oriented vigilance, and vigilance consumes energy. Why uncertainty drains the nervous system? When outcomes are predictable, the brain conserves energy. When outcomes are uncertain, the brain increases scanning and preparation. This involves heightened alertness, increased stress hormone activity, muscle readiness, continuous environmental assessment. If uncertainty persists, activation persists, and persistent activation leads to chronic fatigue. The invisible weight of what if. You may not be consciously worried, but uncertainty often lives in the background as possibility. What if something goes wrong? What if I am not ready? What if stability disappears? Possibility alone can trigger vigilance, and vigilance prevents full relaxation. Safety is a felt experience, not a logical conclusion. You can tell yourself, everything is fine right now. But safety is not decided by logic, it is registered by the nervous system. If unpredictability has been consistent, if stability has felt fragile, if change has arrived without warning, your body learns to stay prepared. Preparedness becomes a default state, even during calm moments. Why you feel tired without clear cause. You may not be overwhelmed today. You may not be facing immediate crisis, yet exhaustion lingers. Because part of your nervous system is working overtime, preparing for an uncertain tomorrow. Not loudly, not consciously, but continuously. You are not weak for feeling this tension. Living with uncertainty is one of the most demanding conditions for the human nervous system, not because danger is constant, but because unpredictability is. The brain prefers known hardship to unknown outcomes. Because certainty allows preparation, uncertainty requires constant vigilance. The energy cost of searching for safety. You are not only tired from what you do, you are tired from what your nervous system is trying to anticipate. From financial uncertainty, from global instability, from change that arrives without warning, from the feeling that control is limited. The brain is always searching for safety, and when safety feels uncertain, the search never fully stops, and neither does the exhaustion. There is a kind of exhaustion that cannot be fixed with sleep, vacation, or time off. It does not feel like stress. It does not feel like overwhelm. It feels like emptiness. You move through the day completing tasks. You respond to messages. You fulfill responsibilities. From the outside, everything appears functional. Inside, something feels absent. Not pain, not panic, just a quiet sense that the spark is gone. This is existential fatigue, and it drains energy at the deepest level. When life feels emotionally flat, you wake up, you move through routines, you complete obligations, you go to sleep. Days pass efficiently, but not vividly. Nothing feels especially wrong, yet nothing feels alive. Experiences that once sparked curiosity now feel neutral. Moments that once brought joy feel muted. Time moves, but you feel untouched by it. This is not laziness. It is emotional disengagement. And disengagement consumes energy because the psyche is built for engagement. The emptiness that is hard to name. This exhaustion is difficult to explain because it lacks drama. There is no visible crisis, no acute distress, no obvious failure. Instead, there is a quiet question. What is all this for? When meaning fades, motivation weakens, and without motivation, energy withdraws. Because energy follows purpose. Living on autopilot. Autopilot is efficient. It allows you to function without constant decision-making. But when autopilot becomes the default mode of living, awareness narrows. Days blur together. Experiences feel repetitive. Moments pass without imprint. You are moving through life without fully inhabiting it. This creates a subtle disconnection between self and experience, and disconnection reduces vitality. The absence of inspiration. Inspiration is not constant, but without any sense of forward pull, life begins to feel directionless. Nothing excites, nothing draws you forward, nothing feels worth the effort. Without anticipation, the future feels flat. Without curiosity, the present feels dull. The nervous system responds to novelty and meaning with activation and engagement. Without these stimuli, energy declines. Human beings are not machines. We are not sustained by fuel alone. We are sustained by significance. Meaning provides context for effort. Purpose provides direction for energy. Values provide motivation for persistence. When effort serves something meaningful, fatigue can coexist with vitality. When effort lacks meaning, fatigue deepens into depletion. The slow drift away from aliveness. Loss of meaning rarely happens suddenly. It develops gradually. Priorities shaped by obligation rather than desire. Routines replacing curiosity. Stability replacing exploration. External expectations replacing internal direction. Over time, aliveness is traded for predictability. Safety increases, vitality decreases. Emotional numbness, protection or disconnection. When life feels disconnected from meaning, emotional flattening can occur. This is not always pathology. Sometimes it is adaptation. When engagement feels unrewarding, the psyche reduces investment. This conserves energy in the short term, but long-term, reduced engagement leads to reduced vitality, because energy flows where emotional investment exists. The difference between rest and emptiness. Rest feels peaceful. Emptiness feels hollow. Rest restores energy. Emptiness drains it. Rest creates spaciousness. Emptiness creates absence. When meaning fades, life may appear calm on the surface while feeling hollow underneath. This hollowness is exhausting because the psyche is built for connection, engagement, and significance. Why you feel tired without clear stress. When meaning is absent, effort feels heavier. Simple tasks require more motivation. Daily routines feel burdensome. Even enjoyable activities feel muted. Not because the activities changed, but because the internal relationship to them did. Energy declines when purpose disappears. You are not broken for feeling this way. Periods of existential fatigue are part of the human experience. They often arise during transitions, after achieving long-sought goals, during identity shifts, after prolonged stress, when previous motivations no longer apply, when growth requires re-evaluation. The loss of old meaning often precedes the discovery of new meaning, but the in-between space can feel empty, and that emptiness can feel exhausting. Energy follows meaning. When something feels meaningful, attention sharpens, motivation increases, fatigue becomes tolerable, effort feels worthwhile. When meaning disappears, motivation declines, effort feels heavy, engagement weakens, energy withdraws. This is not weakness. It is alignment between energy and purpose. When the spark feels gone. If life feels flat, if days feel mechanical, if nothing feels deeply engaging, if energy seems to have quietly drained away, it may not be physical fatigue. It may be the absence of meaning. And when meaning fades, energy does not fight to stay. It waits. It waits for direction, for significance, for something that feels alive enough to move toward. Because when meaning returns, energy follows. Not all exhaustion begins in the mind. Sometimes the body is depleted first, and the mind follows. We often separate physical and emotional fatigue as if they belong to different systems. But the human organism does not function in isolated parts. Body and psyche are inseparable. When physiology is disrupted, mental clarity declines. When the nervous system is strained, the body weakens. When sleep suffers, emotional resilience collapses. To understand why you feel constantly tired, we must briefly look at the biological foundations of energy. Sleep deprivation, the foundation of exhaustion. Sleep is not passive rest. It is active neurological maintenance. During sleep, the brain clears metabolic waste. Memories are processed and integrated. Emotional experiences are regulated. Hormonal systems reset. Neural pathways repair. When sleep is insufficient or fragmented, restoration is incomplete. Even mild sleep deprivation can lead to reduced cognitive performance, increased emotional reactivity, impaired decision-making, decreased stress tolerance, persistent fatigue. You may believe you are functioning normally, but the nervous system is operating at a deficit, and deficits accumulate. Stress hormones and energy depletion. Stress is not inherently harmful. It is a survival mechanism. When a challenge appears, the body releases cortisol and adrenaline to mobilize energy. In short bursts, this is adaptive. But when stress becomes chronic, the system remains activated. Elevated cortisol over time can disrupt sleep, impair immune function, increase inflammation, reduce energy stability, impair concentration. The body is designed for cycles of activation and recovery. Chronic stress removes recovery from the cycle, and without recovery, exhaustion becomes inevitable. Modern fatigue is often associated with sedentary lifestyles. It seems counterintuitive. Moving less should conserve energy. But the human body evolved for movement. Regular movement supports circulation, regulates mood chemistry, improves oxygen delivery, reduces muscular tension, enhances metabolic efficiency. Without movement, energy systems stagnate, muscles stiffen, circulation slows, lethargy increases. Physical inactivity does not preserve energy. It reduces the body's capacity to generate it. Circadian rhythm disruption. The human body operates on biological rhythms aligned with light and darkness. These rhythms regulate sleep cycles, hormone release, body temperature, metabolism, alertness. Artificial light, late-night screen exposure, irregular sleep schedules, and inconsistent routines disrupt these rhythms. When circadian timing is misaligned, sleep quality declines, daytime fatigue increases, hormonal balance shifts, mental clarity weakens. The body loses its internal sense of timing. And when timing is lost, energy regulation suffers. The feedback loop between body and mind. Physical depletion increases emotional vulnerability. Emotional stress increases physiological strain. Poor sleep heightens anxiety. Chronic stress disrupts sleep. Inactivity worsens mood. Low mood reduces movement. Fatigue often emerges from this loop. Not a single cause, but a system under strain. Why this matters? Understanding physiology does not reduce emotional complexity. It deepens it. Because exhaustion is rarely purely psychological and rarely purely physical, it is systemic. You are not separate systems. If you feel constantly tired, it may not be only your thoughts. It may be your sleep, your stress chemistry, your movement patterns, your biological rhythms. Body and psyche are not separate stories. They are one system. And when that system is strained, fatigue becomes not a flaw, but a signal. One of the most confusing experiences of modern life is this. You rest, but do not recover. You sleep, but wake up tired. You stop working, but exhaustion remains. You begin to wonder, what is wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. What is wrong is the assumption that all fatigue is physical. Psychological exhaustion is not the same as physical fatigue. Physical fatigue has a clear pattern: effort to rest to recovery. You exercise, your muscles tire. You sleep, your body restores itself. But psychological exhaustion follows a different pattern. If the source of fatigue is chronic overthinking, emotional suppression, nervous system tension, internal conflict, uncertainty, loss of meaning, then physical rest alone cannot resolve it. Because the body may be still while the mind remains active. When the source of exhaustion is internal, you can lie down for hours while replaying conversations, anticipating problems, monitoring emotions, suppressing feelings, worrying about the future, judging yourself, carrying unresolved decisions. The body is resting, the mind is working, and mental work consumes energy. This is why rest sometimes fails to restore vitality. The source of depletion remains active. Stillness does not equal recovery. Rest is often misunderstood as inactivity, but recovery requires more than stopping movement. Recovery requires nervous system safety, emotional processing, mental quiet, resolution of inner tension. Without these conditions, the system remains activated even during stillness. You may appear relaxed. Internally, effort continues. Why lying down cannot solve inner tension? If exhaustion comes from internal conflict, self-criticism, suppressed emotion, or chronic uncertainty, stillness can amplify awareness of these tensions. This is why some people feel more restless when they try to relax. The body stops, the mind becomes louder. Rest feels ineffective. Not because rest is useless, but because unresolved internal activity continues. Energy is not restored only through sleep. It returns when resistance decreases, when emotional suppression softens, when overthinking slows, when decisions are resolved, when inner conflict quiets, when the nervous system senses safety. Energy is released when internal tension reduces. Awareness restores more than avoidance. Avoidance temporarily numbs discomfort. Awareness dissolves it. When experiences are acknowledged rather than suppressed, the nervous system no longer expends energy maintaining resistance. When emotions are felt rather than contained, tension decreases. When thoughts are observed rather than fought, mental friction softens. This is not passive rest, it is active restoration. Restoration is a state, not an activity. Recovery is not something you do, it is a state the body enters when conditions allow. That state includes safety, presence, emotional completion, mental quiet, physiological regulation. Without these, rest becomes pause without repair. The modern misunderstanding of rest. Modern culture promotes distraction as relaxation, scrolling instead of stillness, noise instead of quiet, input instead of integration. But stimulation prevents recovery, and without recovery, fatigue accumulates. You are not failing to rest. If rest does not restore you, it does not mean you are resting incorrectly. It may mean the source of your exhaustion is not physical. You are not only tired from what you do, you are tired from what remains unresolved within. The central paradox. Rest does not work when exhaustion is psychological. Stillness does not restore when the nervous system feels unsafe. Sleep does not replenish when inattention persists. Energy does not return through inactivity alone. Energy returns when awareness replaces resistance, when the system feels safe enough to release tension, when inner friction softens. Because recovery is not the absence of movement, it is the absence of internal struggle. And when that struggle quiets, energy begins to return.